Hello and welcome guys to another track guide, and today we are at Virginia International Raceway, the full course in the Radical SR8. This is for the new Racing Prodigy series that is about to start soon. The fixed setup, I couldn't see any fixed setup, so I'm using the iRacing Virginia setup, which you can find down here. That's it there. I was just using that setup as that's what the game assigned to me when I loaded in. So let's watch the hot lap and then get straight into the guide. So let's get into the track guide. One thing to watch with this car is it is basically a prototype, but a small one. So it's got very high downforce, so you want to carry as much speed into the corners, but the tyres are super slidey on the first two laps, so you do have to be careful with that and get your tyres up to temperature. For the first corner, we're looking at these braking boards on the left-hand side, and look for the number 3 board. I'm braking just after this number 3 board on the left, shifting all the way down into second gear, trailing the brakes, and then trying to get on the throttle nice and early. As you see, you really have to control the throttle on this car and track combo to watch the wheel spin, and also make sure you are short shifting, because some corners, no matter how much you can control the throttle, it is quicker just to short shift and slam the throttle on. Now, coming into this left-hander, you miss the curbing on this one. You get close to it, but you don't actually try and get right up on this curb here. So a little bit wide, full throttle, and then between the end of this curb and the start of this curb, we want to start braking. So as you see, I'm going to brake only about 50%, shift it down one gear into third gear, trail the brakes, and then get on the power here. As you see, very early on the power, but as soon as we get it turned in, just get on the power. I avoid this curb so it doesn't unsettle it. With it being so high downforce, you don't want to unsettle the car too much. You want to make use of that downforce in the corners. Use all of this exit curb, and as you see, just controlling the throttle. Now, coming into this corner, there isn't really a braking board, but what you can use is the end of this extra bit of tarmac here, where it meets with the grass. You can use that to start the braking. Get down into second gear, get the braking done. As you see, I'm trailing the brakes really far into the corner, getting it as far to the left as possible, and then getting back on the power. And here you really want to just manage the throttle. As you see, just lifting here and then getting back on the power, using a little bit of that curb. Let it go out wide. Be careful that you don't go too wide, especially in the race, because if you touch that grass, it'll just pull you straight off the track. Then for this corner here, about halfway along this curb on the left, I'm lifting off the power just to get it turned into this corner, managing the power, and then I short shift into 4th gear so that I can get full throttle onto the power. You can use this curb, but just be careful, especially on cold tires. As you can see on cold tires, one of the times I spun it straight into the wall. As you see, it's a bit twitchy there, so just try and use as little steering input as possible. And like I said, if you shift into 4th gear there a bit early, it tends to stay very stable. Now coming up through the zigzags, it's full throttle, as you see, just using a little bit of curb on either side. Coming into this right-hander, this is flat, so I try and stay on to the left a little bit, and then just get onto the right here. You want a fairly light apex on this right-hander to be as close to the right-hand side as possible coming into this left-hander. Here, we just use a tap of the brakes, 6th gear, make use of that downforce. There isn't a braking board. There is a big tree on the left here, and I brake basically in line with that. On my triple monitors, I can see it on my side monitor. On a single monitor, there isn't actually a braking point. As you can see, it's just grass. So you just have to get used to where the braking is, and you just have to see if you can find a marker for yourself. Based on your own setup and screen, you might be able to see a marker you can use for consistent braking inputs. But as you see, it's only about a 30% brake at most. Tap of the brakes, then getting on power. You can use a little bit of this curb, but you don't need to. Just get on the power nice and early and carry as much speed as possible. You can use all of this curb here, as you see. Just be careful not to go into this grass too much, because if you hit that at an angle, it will spin you off into the wall. So full throttle there, just carrying as much speed as possible. Now coming into this double right-hander, the key is to make sure you get a really good exit, because you have a really long straight after this. So if you mess up the exit of this double right-hander, you're going to get swamped on the straight. So at the number 2 board, just before it, you want to get on the brakes. You can shift down into 2nd gear for rotation and then short shift into 3rd before you accelerate out the corner, or you can keep it in 3rd gear for both of the corners. It's up to you. Play around with it. Depending on different track conditions, you can see what you find easier. Keeping it in 3rd gear is going to be more stable, so if you prefer it to be stable, just keep it in 3rd gear for this double right-hander. So the biggest thing to watch is don't lock up. Be careful with the braking. You want to trail the brakes into the corner, but if you lock up, you go straight into the tire wall and it just destroys the car. So you do have to be careful with the braking here, especially in the race. So as you see, I'm trailing the brakes, hitting that first apex, and then treat this as a double apex. So I'm letting the car drift out wide, still on the brakes, and then I get it turned in about here. And I'm aiming for this curb, fairly late apex, and just focusing on being in that 3rd gear, getting on the power as early as possible. As you see, we're 45% power before we even hit the curb. Clip a little bit of the curb and just get on the power. Use all of this concrete and it won't invalidate your lap. And get on the power and get on this straight. So that exit is really crucial for lap time, and especially in the race, to not get swamped. Now, coming into the final sector, you're at over 246 kilometers an hour, so you have to be careful with your braking again. But you also don't want to scrub off too much speed because you can carry quite a bit of speed through here. So braking is between the 1 board and this arrow board. We want to get on the brakes, trailing of the brakes, bring it over to the left as much as possible because we're opening it up into the right. So we want to stay either just left of the middle line basically to come into this right-hander. So as you see, trailing the brakes, still trailing the brakes into 3rd gear. As you see, just trailing the brakes even more just before we touch the curb. So we're basically trailing the brakes from here. And we are still on the brakes, and then we get on the power just as we come onto this curb. just manage the power. You can short shift if you find the car's a little bit unstable. Hug this left curb a little bit, then let it drift out wide, open the steering wheel up. For the final corner, use all this curb, then aim to clip this curb, and you want to hold it left to open up the final corner as much as possible. So as you see, I'm turning in, just lifting off the power for this left-hander. And then fourth gear here, tap of the brakes, 45% or so. Then come off the brakes nice and early, and you just want to get on the power about here. So you're just on the brakes for basically where this yellow curb ends. You're braking from here to about here. So as you see, on the brakes, and then off the brakes, and onto the power. Try and keep it smooth. It will feel a bit sketchy, so make sure your tires are nice up to temperature before you do this. But if you take this in fourth gear, you can carry a lot of speed and it opens up the final corner. As you see, just a little bit of power to keep the downforce on the car. As soon as I know it's got grip, full power out of the final corner. You don't need to clip this apex. Let it drift out wide. If you try and clip that apex and put too much steering angle in, you're just going to scrub off speed. So just try and open the wheel as early as possible to get onto this straight. So that is it for the track guide, guys. Again, just to remember that it's a high downforce car, so you want to use that downforce as much as possible and try and carry as much speed as you can in the corners. We will be making a track guide for every round of the Racing Prodigy series in the Radical SR8, so if you guys have any suggestions or would like to know more about the car, let me know in the comments down below and I'll be happy to help. As always guys, thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and see you again next time.